While in the midst of COVID and self-isolation and social distancing, it has been easy to feel loneliness and melancholy without our usual social interactions. Perhaps we take for granted the precious passing moments we share with others. However, during this time, we are also drawn to consider, what does solitude truly mean? What does it mean to embody solitude? It is the opportunity to be with oneself without interruption, to allow your thoughts and ambitions to arise from within. Solitude holds such a vast meaning and significance, can be held with joy or sorrow. We were fascinated by the open potential of this theme and its meaning for others, and as always, our contributors have surpassed our wildest dreams and imagination. Tiny Spoon is pleased to present you our 6th issue, Solitude.
In the meantime, the mantids are tired of me. They hang upside down in plastic soup containers and stare at me with disdain. The internet says mantids will recognize a human face. No kidding. They are tired of fruit flies. They probably want crickets. I tell them we are in a pandemic, but they know that. When they hatched, I wasn't expecting it. It took 3 days for their food to arrive. The first day, they were fine, but there were fewer on the second day, and numbers dwindled even more by the third morning. We agreed not to talk about it. The news says we will all have the same dreams. Bugs. Literal. A collective fear of the virus. In my sleep, a mantis bites my arm, the thin skin in the crook of my elbow. Only a small pinch, but it gets me out of bed. I feed them again. In the daylight, I FaceTime with students. We talk about murder wasps. This week, a video showing a mantis feasting on one of the giant hornets circulates around the web. I tell my husband we are trading one fear for another. An article shows a picture of a mantis eating the brain out of a hummingbird's skull. He tells me I have a poor understanding of risk management. He is probably right. They show the deadly mantis on a Saturday night. My mantids are nearly 2 months old. They tap their spurs against the plastic. It's probably Morse code. I'm sure they are plotting against me. I watch them face each other for hours. I watch them for hours.
I'm Christina Rauh Fishburne, and this is Seclusion. It is supposed to be slow. Expect languor, boredom. Pages to read, pages to write. I lean too close. My eyes hurt. My children form alliances. There is a flag, a territory. Their baby faces watch me from behind glass, from frozen past years. I remember taking the picture, capturing, claiming for myself, mine. When did beauty become pain? A lilac ribbon caught in the coffin's lid. A window, an outside pressed right up against an inside. My hand is compelled to reach for glass, for the missing opposite self. I am the glass. There is no walking. Can we run? They beg. I instruct. I place boundaries. But there are no walls now. The woods have grown up without us. We disappear into snowdrifts of petal and leaf. Slow down, I call. You've gone too far. We are hedgehogs, they reply. I accept it. Games are necessary and never ending. I remember. It is supposed to be slow. Expect silence, doubt, fear of the dark. I pause to read their faces, their shoulders, their stance. I see no loneliness, no longing for the town or place outside the grange. You are the queen dragon, I am told. She hands me a scroll. I do not argue. I close my eyes to the kitchen and open them to a forest, an island, a world they've made. I can see it. I am in it. I am it. I wear a mask to buy milk and eggs. There are no eggs left. I wear a mask to buy milk. I see familiar eyes and smile though my mouth is covered. I teach my eyes to smile. I tell my youngest he cannot come with me, because you'd have to wear a mask, I explain. It is the wrong excuse. He says, okay, from behind his Spider-Man face. It is supposed to be slow. Expect frustration, confusion. What will you be when you grow up? They ask the youngest behind his mask. But he doesn't understand the question. And neither do I, because they've already forgotten I am the queen. But I remember. What time is it? What will you be? When can we take a trip? I don't know the answers. Potholes push up past bricks and stones and roads from a time I wasn't here. My children run. Their legs are pistons. Their hair is too long. Clouds push against sun and the wind throws its head back. Faster to the woods. Faster to the end of the hedge. Faster to the large puddle shaped like toast. I try to make my legs long. There are no walls. There are no masks. There is no walking, only speed, only laughing, only holes in the earth where the layers show through. It isn't new. I teach my eyes to blink slowly. I like this day, this sky, this name of my own choosing. Time is different now. The tick, the hand, their voices, their hands, this hour. I can't make it slower. I can't let it pass. I am this hour. Thank you.
I'm Jessie Bullard, and I will be reading my 2 prose poems included in issue 6, Solitude of Tiny Spoon. The first poem is called Unearth. I stand before the sink with a cuffed, marked cutting board in my hands and watch the steam billowing from a slick, grainy surface lift up like apparitional memory, like dreams I once had when falling was romantic and sharp edges glinted like diamonds instead of knives, and my arms were full of your skin, your breath, your movement, your sway, instead of this absent ghost manifested in quiet moments that stay with me. My hands scrub away the contents needed to be clean until everything is gone. I place the cutting board among other lived with things to dry in the window light before turning to gather the crushed, translucent, halved lemons and the miscellaneous ends, all deemed unworthy. This next poem is called Womb. They say fraternal twins are not as close as identical twins, not only in appearance, but in intimacy, in heart and mind. My twin brother was Earth's reflection, the whole universe swallowed by our mother's womb, and his small pink face crumpling to cry the measure of truth, his hands always searching for mine, a pursuit of love. He remained my faithful counterpart until the drudge of life courted us apart. And I remember the way they used to say twins have this psychic ability to sense when the other is in pain, in need. They know, they feel it in their bones, that their link is not okay. Yet as far down as I reach within myself or towards this wilting spirit that lay to rest in that womb, I cannot feel, I cannot sense him. I do not know if he is okay. I cannot feel, I do not feel anymore. Thank you so much.
7 by 10. Rustling leaves and groaning birch limbs, the scent of rain-sodden soil, bicycle tires finding purchase among flint-laden trails, the woods swim by, torrents of browns and greens. I'm flying, surrounded by friends. It is summer and I am free. As the sun comes through the spiderly branches, I catch a glimpse of a hard corner, and the August afternoon seems to fade. I turn left. The snow is laden with an effervescent glow, and a hard wind comes up off the rocky valley below. Father waves from further up the trail, his red windbreaker a beacon through the biting sleet. On the edge of my vision, a slab of granite is cutting through the drift. It forms a hard corner. I turn left. The wicker creaks, nylon rustles as it's given another burst of searing heat. Lucy sips her champagne, hair dancing lazy in the thinning air. I hold her as we scan the horizon, the deep blue infinity and expanse curved only by the eye's limits. Below the basket, the dense white cloudscape narrows into a hard corner. I turn left, and left, and left. The corners join. All that's left is solitary confinement.
Bedbugs by Daniel O'Reilly. Las sombras imposibles de la tarde. Damn, Georgie says some meaningless things sometimes. Though I admit that doesn't usually stop me from wanting to listen. Perhaps it's the dulcet tone of his sweet voice, a miraculous instrument that keeps me listening. I can't hear the meaning in anything he says. I'm too distracted by the sweetness, like burned sugar. Las sombras imposibles de la tarde. When it is sunny and the streets are baked hard and dry, we hide together beneath wide-brimmed sombreros as we walk like kings of the village, the compañeras with the shadowy halos, abroad when everybody else is at siesta, paying careful respects to El Sol. But when it's freezing and the shadows are death, we huddle together like bugs in a bed, the chinches with the full bellies full of blood. I never tried a gateway drug because I'm not especially architectural. Geordie, on the other hand, has a much better relationship with plants than he does with people, which makes him a more architectural person. He's familiar with gateways. His days are structured around the vegetable architecture of tobacco and the plant logic of alcoholism. Then there is the poppy, the mushrooms, and the assorted weeds and roots he combines to use on certain more special occasions to join up all the many gateways and alleyways together into a more coherent city-state. I guess he does this to gain a better understanding of himself and how he relates to the processes of which he is a part. Because there is much inhuman that is vegetable, or wishes to become vegetable. There is a certain authority in the vegetable, and a certain respect is required, a respect they don't teach young people these days. When I don't spend my days with vegetable Geordie, everything is structured according to different needs, and I can vegetate in my own way. Lonesome, I loll about on the sofa and do nothing but watch Netflix or play music. When I train my eye to follow just a single swallow riding the thermal columns outside the window, scooping up tiny insects caught in that great swell of warm air. But then I always want to reconnect. Can't you see that I want to be with you? If I can be bothered, I walk down into the heart of the village and watch how roads join the marketplace like ventricles, connecting people to the merchants of most immediate need. The bar, the tobacco, and the pharmacy are always the busiest places. They do a sustainable trade. I vegetate sometimes in front of the television, or sometimes I vegetate when I am out. Today I go to the park to vegetate there, amongst the other plants and shrubs. I would make a good shrub, I think to myself as I walk through the park, between the cycads and the occasional carnivorous plants that sit around waiting for a meat meal. I sit in an evolving expanse of bright green shapes that flow like conduits out of the ground, a peculiar jungle of giant cactus forms spilling forth tendrils, animal-shaped orchids, spikes of every colour and variety, vicious fractals of rude life grasping for power and influence, whilst taking every opportunity to be beautiful. Some giant conifers stretch up to unbelievable heights to reach El Sol, as do the eucalyptoid varieties, shedding pretty pink bark across the ground for the ants to sift through. It is awkward to sit whilst all this chaos of the plant kingdom is going on about me, unless I take care to vegetate properly. This method of mine is not something I can share with you. It's as private as your eyelid. I resolve to spend the rest of the afternoon hiding out in the shadows, moving through the village, crossing one shadow at a time, as in a game of hopscotch. Old ladies peep through lacework curtain shades at the weirdo girl vampire. Geordie was right about these shadows. They really are impossible.
We fell in with skipping hearts and forgot the beats we missed. We hid fault lines in our smiles and let them break too slow. Our love drowned under habit, flooding, flushing red until it drained into pale. As a closed-eyed traveller, I dream in quiet roads. I breathe through sleeping air, soft as fresh tire hum. I meet myself in silence, gripping fresher lives. I find a wandering spirit, the self I can't take home. In music, I am the hill we pass, a slowly rolling rambler, repeating driveway beats. I am a song that only I can hear. Left alone from movement, roads are only bricks, scattered feathers waiting to meet in wings, forever ready to intertwine in flight. I live as a stem, adrift in a sea of eyes, watched but never seen, drifting under vision that never lands. Without space between us, we forget our names. We blend, we sink, until as one, we are alone. I want to live in greys, build a home from smudges, white rooms that shift to black, a life as snow-spread dust, never choosing sides. We glow our brightest as petals, newly picked, as fractures in stolen time, caged in one last moment before we wilt. A lingered flush of warmth, not yet ready to be lost. I hunted repetition, dragged lines into arrows. In pieces, I saw the light of chance. I found patterns alone from answers, free from the need for meaning. I sit with shadows, give names to tiny lives, scratch dirt with watching faces. If fear won't let me be alone, I'll find a way to share it.
My name is Jacqueline. Today I'm reading from a running list of short poems, a few of which were published by Tiny Spoon and Lip Bag. I call these the silent monsters. Ribs like lines on a page. I write nothing, the body writes nothing, nothing, nothing at all. The hip juts, hunger builds, you call, I answer but do not speak. I'm a blank postcard with nothing to say. Hunger turns me into a sharp thing. The monster, it makes a meal of me. I roam empty halls, I devour a weaker heart, mine. I trace the exit sign, memorizing its contours, its start cadence, its incantatory figures which the light makes dance in a dark room. I gravitate towards it. I make many mistakes. Loneliness turns me into a sharp thing. Ice in the whiskey glass and a sharpened letter opener I keep on the bedside table. Fever dreams and lost lists, detailing all the things I won't get to today. Something else arrives, your voice through a scratchy connection. I starve on all the resentments I stash under the bed. They thump on the wooden slats the second I fall asleep. When is the last time someone spoke to me in that quiet hushed tone of intimacy, that hum of closeness which climbs the walls of bone and infiltrates flesh just for that one sweet moment? I arrive to your shore no longer among the living. The same desperate wagers and prayers the sleepless make are the same bets which the lonely take, never on the money, looking for a way out of the pain I grow broke. In the end, all I learned was how to beg for mercy. I take the last instance of your kind laughter and parse it out daily, like rations during wartime. When the long arch of the afternoon turns sharp, silence becomes palpable enough to slice through the thinning air. I am grateful indeed. It is just that my gratitude comes out as grief. No longer able to distinguish hunger from loneliness, I consume and am consumed. This loneliness is a haunted home whose hallways I roam, but surprisingly, these ghosts have been very pleasant company indeed. What is it that I touch when I touch this screen? What is it that I miss when I say that I miss you? I call, but hang up after 2 rings. I become monster, meal, empty page, a lit match too close to the fingers, melting ice in a whiskey glass. Loneliness carves me into a sharp thing. When will I become a forgiven thing? When, oh when, will I become a soft thing, a loved thing? I give up the game, the bet, the wager, and check my phone.
We used to find traces, a torn flyer advertising a week of feminist film, the poster for a karaoke night, or banners from demonstrations. One day we came across something about a rent strike. It was hard to believe we'd once lived in apartments. We also found a number of those hand-drawn warning signs and the usual instructions on hygiene. The sunlight hurt like a blue flame inside my skull. There was a small helicopter above what had been the ice rink. Just a little to the side, 5 men in jumpsuits were sweeping something down a hole, a bit like those holes we used to cast our ballots in. Neither of us could remember the last time we'd seen such a large group of people, apart from cops, obviously. At this point, I could no longer stand to look at your face for very long. It was dissolving and reassembling too rapidly for me to process. To watch was painful, the way the sunlight was painful, though the cold was worst, a cruel physics at work on our nerve endings. Observed in mirrors, you said, without a stitch to wear. The city disappeared, left us like flies on glass, restricted and vulnerable in a newly two-dimensional world. Data points, contact traced, a cherished room rendered unrecognizable by evacuation of all familiar content. The ice rink converted overnight. That day we heard about your friend, we talked about our exception, their rule. Blink of single eye. There runs the early man of few days and full of trouble. This hinged moment, this register of injuries, a sonorous cavity, a major offense, all structures now fully collapsed, crystals everywhere, photons racing, a passing star, a searing pain, a powerful X-ray flare, a hissing noise that just won't stop, shadow play, flutter of eyelids, lung scar, your knife collection. Tonight, there's gonna be a showdown. Think of a number, any number, multiply 2 ways, record the results, expect these figures to increase, etc.
A breeding ground, a grow house, a nursery. Perhaps the space of each grid grain, sieve component through which I sift the remnants of each morning's dreams, is the true reach, the distance of every symbol's stretch, its depth. This dawn had thin black apples, a bass note clef played by a princess dressed in evil on organ keys carved into a house phone, old curly cord and all. Do you remember those? These are the images I keep, staccato bits I retain on the other side of consciousness, a narrative of spun cotton candy. The connective tissue dissolves upon waking to save only the nodes, archetypal, both open and closed. Each morning I search through my book, looking for definition, the closest form correlation in its index. These are stepping stones across the surface, a code underfoot, one independent-ish of language. How many stresses exist in what you attempt to convey? The reduction to syllables is a cousin of binary, yes. Everything is its own spectrum, but some are less of a slide between each defined component, more a series of continuous little leaps from one to the next. I want to know what rests in the space between each breath, between each kernel glow of understanding. What dwells in the interstitial gaps we all own. I need to give them room enough to enable loam, to create a place where the unsayable begins to grow. As evidence, as if. I brought you back a hagstone, a shell only. A river rock might have been more impressive when you consider the investment of time and energy on water's behalf. But I was by the ocean, so take this shield as memory, as message, as souvenir, as letting go, as potential adornment, as look how far we've gone, as we all carry a whole, as what can pass through that portal, as it hasn't even been that long since. I brought you back a hagstone, the washing of irritant against thin basin until inevitable consequence. Evidence, if you're hunting for some justification. Of what? Well, now it's your turn. And when you emerge on the other side of this, you will be a different person again. Jagged edges of previous selves scrape against throat with each attempt to swallow them. It's okay to gasp as if coming up for air, as if surfacing. Feel time, this period, both expand and contract. Across the length of new identity, fold back on itself, as if an accordion-bound book, as if extracting exoskeleton, home, as if you could secrete, carry your own landscape, as if you could be anyone else.
COVID-19, social butterfly, forced to contemplate caterpillar self. COVID-19, social butterfly, forced to contemplate caterpillar self.
Hello, this is Sara Femenella. Thank you, Tiny Spoon, for giving me an opportunity to share some of my work. I'm going to share 3 poems, starting with the poem that appears in the Solitude issue of Tiny Spoon, which is part of a series of epistolary poems. So I will begin with Letter from a Rhetorical Question. Dear blank, as manatees grazing through green waters filtered with light, bobbing in a private stream of consciousness, as gazelles alert in distant savannas, tense at an unfamiliar scent, sudden spring, nothing but the rustling of tall grass. As the air at the top of Everest, a thin, rarefied silk, more ornament than function, a sparkling notion of resource, a resolution. As the spotted owl in a vespertine empire, a crown of midnights, a winged womb, words I beheld in my mouth, you are impeccable. My unearthly prognosis, my spinning Andromeda whistling your mythological helix, you're coming, I am waiting. Letter from Domestic Resignation. Dear blank, we reap what remains. Callow wounds bloom in our veins, our blackest birds cull promises from a syntax of forgetting. Tomorrow a heavy pulse where hope roots marrowed in joy, a winnowed haunt. Here anchor, here lack, here thine logic in a red arc apropos of who knows what. Doctors, groceries, a game of chess. It is as such, palm to palm, our little lives backlit by the open refrigerator. What do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want for dinner? And after, we remain full-blown crossbowed, pierced down to the ancestral, the thing divine. We remain waiting. In our most harrowed dawns, our yes raven, yes, we remain. Letter after a close encounter between Jupiter and Saturn. Dear blank, define craving, I instructed myself, a walking synonym below the optical illusion, below the conjunction in western twilight. How strange, the 6th planet from the sun, a nameless one sprouting hair in an unknown universe. Event horizon, the holiest parishioner in the cathedral of my body, unknown to a world which claims you. You'll never know all the creation myths we had to believe in you. Year 0. How strange that we should be so close now. Inside me, I seek you, transmit myself through myself to you. Dear blank, just because you are unnamed does not mean you are not possessed. You are here. Reach out and feel the mother I become for you. Listen to the voice I mother you with, one apogee spinning around another. Dear blank, what's strange is you will never be so close again. Your flickering anonymity, breath-locked in my asymmetry, a late December moon. Ex nihilo. Thank you.
A poem for Ali Akbar Khan, 1922 to 2009. Listening to an autumn raga in springtime. What in the end did humans think all this writing would do? Look at the bookshelf. Bhagavad Gita next to rakish Mark Twain. The Harlem Renaissance reader tips against Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who told writers, remove what's not needed. There's beaucoup Gertrude Stein. Shakespeare, lots, and Ezra Pound squints in the grass at an ant. Confucius honed his thought and led him astray. The thick-foxed Oxford anthology. Hard to call that dry, leathery verse poetry. Here's field guides, a natural history of the Coyote clan, Navajo myth, masks, eco-warriors, and Sei Shonagon, who made the best lists. But none of it saved us. A book on Mongol Buddhist horsemen. What did their art do? Windy, glacier-torn, cloud grass visions, bronze-breasted girls, even Dante couldn't see those heavenly forms for the glare. Some master craftsman painted lapis lazuli onto their curls. I won't open the book, though. That three-eyed end-of-world death skull cuts closer than words. Virus, terror, blood, lies, war, dead cities every direction. So to the 300 cubic inch Sanskrit Dictionary, 1879, blue frayed Oxford cloth ripped at the spine, MacBook Pro perched on its 3,000-year lexicon, tougher than Marx, Heidegger, Chomsky, head trips of the West. What in the end did humans think writing could do? Blanched musical fingers begin to play. Faded words, black holes, dying dwarf star doom. An autumn raga played by a dead man. The Posk flower in bloom.